Yeah, yeah, yeah. Baby, yeah. You know, say ready for this. You know I have patience.
Hey, greetings, family. Greetings. Welcome to another episode of the Grand Rising Collective podcast. As you know, this is a podcast that is here for the community. It is here to engage, inform, empower, right? And also encourage those folks who are going through obstacles, challenges, having problems and wanting to find solutions. This is the place for you. So, not to be too long-winded, I want to get into the introduction for those who are new to it. So my name is Kyle Dixon. I'm co-host, educator, entrepreneur, also a person in the community who works with the youth, mentorship, etc. I'm an entrepreneur as far as a film production company, Precise Minds Filmworks, that I co-own with Corey Smallwood. Also, I've been an educator for 20 plus years. So when we're talking about certain issues, I'm coming from a place of actual practical application of what I've been learning, what I've been teaching, what I've been doing. So without further ado, I'd like to pass it over to my co-host partner, Kai Bentley.
Thank you, Kyle. I appreciate you. Appreciate the kind words. Darren, appreciate you too. So without any delay, my name is Kai Bentley, and I think it's important that you understand who's talking to you as well as who you're listening to. And doing that, let me share this. My name, as I mentioned already, is Kai Bentley, and I'm the president and founder of an organization called Teaching Teens to Think. The mission of the organization is to help inner city youth, particularly between the ages of 16 to 24, identify their inherent skill set, meaning what they do naturally. So that way they can lever that inherent skill set that they have to complete the education, higher education, get a job, establish a career, and start a business if they choose to. That's one hat that I wear. The other hat that I wear is professor at Fordham University, where I teach social services and social justice, helping graduate students in order to start their own nonprofit organization to help the community. The third hat that I wear is sitting on the advisory board at LIU. Same thing. Now, the purpose of me joining Grand Rising Collective with my co-host and colleague, Kyle Dixon, is to be able to disseminate the information that I've acquired over the years to a larger demographic, whereas it doesn't just exist of youth in the city youth between the ages of 16 to 24, but it also involves the community at large, which includes parents, organizational leaders in the community, as well as business owners and things of that nature, in order to build up the community. And instead of having these conversations in a bubble, just among ourselves, as far as my brothers in my network, to be able to share that information, disseminate that information, take it outside the bubble to uplift the community as a whole. So that's basically who I am, my introduction. Without any further delay, I want to bring the floor up to our guest, Mr. Darren Mack. You hear great things about this brother. You know how Cal be doing. You know what we bring to the Grand. You're ready for the conversation, y'all?
Yeah.
Without any further ado, Darren, please introduce yourself. Let the people know who you are so we can dive right into this conversation. Thank you, brother.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Kyle. Thank you, brother. First and foremost, like I was mentioned earlier, my name is Darren Mack, and I'm currently the Outreach and Alumni Engagement Coordinator for an organization called Just Leadership USA. And Just Leadership USA is an organization that has a bold mission, which is to decarcerate and cut in half the U.S. correctional population by 2030. And we do this in various ways. And one of the ways is through our advocacy work. In 2016, Just Leadership USA led a campaign along with several partner organizations throughout New York City called the Campaign to Close Rikers Island. And so I've been a part of that since I've been a member of the organization, and it became a leading advocate for the Campaign to Close Rikers Island. And then after I graduated from grad school, I was hired to be the Outreach and Alumni Engagement Coordinator for Just Leadership USA and involved with their work. You know, I'm from the old Brooklyn, a Brooklynite. I usually like to qualify that because the new Brooklyn is different from the Brooklyn.
Definitely different.
And, you know, and I'm one of of 70 million people in our country who has a criminal conviction. You know, at the age of 17, I was incarcerated for being an accomplice to a robbery, and I was basically sent to Rikers Island when there was over 20,000 people on Rikers Island at the time, and charged as an adult. And ultimately, I was sentenced to 20 to 40 years in prison.
Wow.
After serving 20 years in prison, you know, I came out and you know, I was politicized while incarcerated, and we could get into that later. But you know,
Surely.
And started doing work around social justice. So that's just a little about myself and my experience in this work.
Thank you, Darren.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you, brother. Yeah, so Darren, I want to hop right into it, man. So, in reference of the population now, like the in Rikers Island, tell a little bit of people about that, because you know I come from the hip hop generation where I wasn't born and raised in New York, and I know you from Brooklyn and Cody's from the Bronx, so no rivalry here, folks. Like there's no rivalry, no big K thing going on, all love, right? But yeah, I know Rikers had this notorious rep, man. Like it just. You know, like just whatever could happen would happen or will happen. How was that experience, man, as far as you being a young man and having to go through that, and then, like you said, coming out politicized, man? Like really go into that, please.
Yeah, so like in the early 90s, you know, even like the late 80s, you know, I've like grown up in Brooklyn in a neighborhood in Bushwick called Borinquen Projects. It was like the projects called Borinquen Plaza Projects. And it was a community much like the community in the South Bronx or Bronzeville, or community in East New York or South Jamaica, Queens, where there was a concentration of poverty, you know, and we had like a lack of funding in the schools. You know, we had like school to prison pipelines. You have a high level of unemployment amongst Black and Latino males. So these communities, which I call crisis communities, you know, there was a lack of funding from the city and investment in those things like education, employment, affordable housing. But the thing that the city did invest in was policing, you know, and our communities became over policed. Like even today, there's police in the schools. So, you know, unfortunately, I got trapped in the system and went to Rikers Island at the age of 17 when there was over 20,000 people there. And, you know, I heard, like you said, it's a notorious place, known for brutality, known for violence, known for corruption. And, you know, I was scared like most people, you know, because I heard so many stories. I've heard, you know, people getting stabbed, getting beat up, getting brutalized. And the thing about it is like, those things like was a reality, you know, it became a reality to me once I got incarcerated in Rikers Island. And the thing about it, you are either on Rikers Island to this day, you either a predator or a prey. I had to develop a behavior to be violent. Like I never thought I could be violent in order to survive. I'm a predator. You know, I had to what's the word? I had to like execute a level of violence that I thought I wasn't even capable of in order to protect myself and put fear others to leave me alone. You know, and then there's the violence from, you know, unfortunately from some correctional officers, you know, and like have to protect yourself against that and fight back against that, you know. So that was another level of violence that I never really experienced, you know. And but my politicization, it actually came when I actually went to the state prison, you know, and it actually came from, you know, people who were political prisoners. It was a brother by the name of Abdul Majid. He was a part of the Black Liberation Army, and I came into contact with him, and he taught me about, and it was like the month of February, you know, they had like a Black history class, and he taught me about the struggle for Black liberation, you know, from since we hit these shores, you know, with and Amistad, you know, rebelling on a boat, coming here, up to the Black Panther Party and the Black Liberation Army. So that gave me kind of like brought some awareness to my consciousness of the struggle of here, and that was like probably like one of the first stages of my politicization that got me involved with like social justice work, in the beginning.
Indeed. Thank you for that, man. Yeah, indeed. And just to kind of piggyback on what you were saying, Darren, like you're saying the brother took you all the way back, to show that it's been a continuation of this assault on Black bodies. And one thing I want to add on to that is, and please elaborate on this and add to it if you can, like when we talk about Reconstruction era, meaning post-slavery, post 1865, going into the Jim Crow, which I've seen you talked about before, like those Jim Crow laws, and Michelle Alexander, the new Jim Crow, that type as well. Could you talk about that, like that connection, that historical connection that a lot of people don't seem to understand? Yeah,
it's like you mentioned, Michelle Alexander wrote a book called The New Jim Crow, and how the Jim Crow of the past, segregation, which was legal, blacks in water fountains, black schools, black hotels, and separation of the races, and education and housing and community and all levels of government. So that basically evolved because we fought against that. We fought against that to dismantle that legal segregation. And Michelle Alexander, she basically laid out what we have currently today is the new Jim Crow. Right now we have over 70 million people in our country who has a criminal conviction, 20 million people who have a felony conviction. And in this country, if you have a felony conviction, there's over 5,000 laws that legally discriminated against you because you have a felony conviction. Like in California, you have prisoners, men and women who are incarcerated in prison. They are incarcerated and can get trained to fight fires, but when they come home, because they have a felony conviction, they can't get a job as a fireman or a firewoman. Or you got people like here in New York or different states across the country where you could like cut hair, you could be a barber inside, but because they have a felony conviction, they can't get a barber's license, or you can't get a liquor license. Mark Wahlberg, he's the famous actor that played the different movies. He had a conviction when he was young, and he's been fighting and putting money for years to get a license, alcohol license. He's been trying to get his felony conviction overturned because he has these businesses, these restaurants. Right.
I know he has the Whataburger thing going on.
Yeah. So it's thousands of laws that legally discriminate, and that's the new Jim Crow. In some states in this country where you lose the right to vote for the rest of your life if you have a felony conviction.
Wow.
But people, directly impacted people, been fighting it. Like in Florida, just about a year or two ago, they directly impacted people had organized in Florida to put on a ballot for the reinstatement of people who have felony convictions to be able to vote, and they won. And that impacted over 1 million people in Florida to get their voting rights back.
Nice.
So the new Jim Crow is in existence. It's different types of laws, all the way from the lowest thing to like getting a barber's license, all the way to the voting rights, which every citizen should have, that discriminate against people. So it's people fighting. So that's when Michelle Alexander laid it out. Like, that's probably one of the best books that people need to read when it comes to the criminal justice system. And she laid it out plain with evidence and history.
Awesome, Darren. Very good. Man, man, you be hitting me, Kyle, with this stuff, man.
Yeah.
Takes me a while to process.
It's not me. It's this brother, man. I'm telling you,
Darren, what advice could you give to young people, particularly inner city young brothers, who hopefully, they realize what's at stake now, but in case they don't, what advice could you give to them so that way they won't get caught by the system? when you were 17 years old. You was hanging out with your friends, you was chilling, you were having a good time. You know, you're doing what little 17-year-old kids do. You know what I mean? But the impact that it has on our lives as Black in this system compared to others, because I would look to share something that I heard from one of the influencers that I watch on YouTube, where he says there was a situation where him, a couple of friends, one of them were white, they snuck into a pool. The neighbors called the police. The police came. They let the white kid go, even escorted him home, and arrested the Black influencer. And then the next day, when they got out, he met up with his white friend again. His white friend was like, yo, that was fun last night. Let's do that again. He's like, do that again? He's like, yo, I got it. He said, they didn't drive you home? No, they didn't drive. So my question to you with these young brothers who think that, you know, they don't have to be on point, if they can slot, what advice would you give? What advice can you give to them?
Yeah, man, that's a very good question, and I think there's a lot of things, you know, tips and pieces of advice that I would give to young people in order to be diverted or be strategic and try not to get trapped in the system. You know, specifically what I call the carceral system. You know, some people say criminal justice system, but I don't believe there's no justice in the system when it comes to Black and brown people. So I used to utilize that term, but it was probably like within the last couple of months, I was like, you know, I got to stop saying criminal justice system because it hasn't been just for us. It's been unjust and nothing but injustice for us when it comes to this system. So it's a lot of things. Like, one, I suggest that brothers and sisters in the hood in our communities to read the works of the people of the past that have been involved with the struggle for our freedom and liberation. You know, read the book of the people of the present. You know, the people who've been like trying to like Michelle Alexander, been trying to lay out how the system has been designed. Right. You know, the system has been designed for us to get trapped in it. You know, the system has been designed for us to even absorb some people of our people into the system in order to perpetuate it to the detriment of our own selves, you know? Because that's what it do. It takes a few of our brilliant mind to become part of the system so they can perpetuate the system against our own selves, you know? And because before we used to think like, oh, if we just get some Black faces in high places, things will be okay.
Right.
We had Black faces in high places for a long time, and look, Black Lives Matter started under the Black president. That's the highest office in the country. You know what I'm saying? So Black faces in high places is not the solution. So I read history, man. You know, read the history of our struggle, and we have people who have been a part of the struggle that still exist today. You know, I think it was like about within the last week, you had some original Black Panther Party members put out an open letter to the hip hop community. You know, Kathleen Cleaver, Jamal Joseph, who's 21, Ruba Ben Wahad. They came together and put a letter to the hip hop community like, hey, listen, we need to come to the table. Y'all have influence. We've been through the struggle already, you know, and so y'all need to know the traps of the past, so y'all don't repeat them. So we gotta learn history, read about history, and the elders have been in the struggle. You know, you still got people that's part of the SNCC, the Symbolic Coordinating Committee, still around, still alive. Yeah. So those are probably the two things, and get involved with an organization. You know, we can't really do it by ourselves. You know what I'm saying? Get involved with an organization that you feel, learn about what they're doing, what's their goal, what's their mission, and you feel it's the right spot for you. Get involved with it, and then once you in it, if you feel it's not a right thing for you, then look around. There's a lot of organizations, you know, around, you know, in the community and in the city. So those three things: read history, get in touch with the elders and learn from the elders that have been a part of the struggle, and get involved with the organization, because it's going to take organizing in order to get free and, you know, in true liberation.
Awesome. Awesome. Very good.
Indeed. And Darren, yeah, man, because I try to tell some of the as they call them, the shorties, man. I try to tell some of the young folk, the shorties, man, that it's important to join an organization. There's enough organizations out here that you can join up with because you need to know how to organize. Us being, singular, going at it at like one person, that's not going to work. We have to be organized. We have to be on one common theme, one common cause, or common causes that are core values of that particular organization to be able to move forward. We're not going to be able to do that as like each individual person. It's just, that's not how things get moving. That's not how things get done. And I'm glad you said that, because I want you to kind of go into some of the organizations that outside of the ones that you're part of that people may want to join or may need to look into, or a place where they can go to just look up different organizations. Because, I know a lot of times it's like, well, which one and where do I look?
Right. Yeah, definitely. So organization is a couple of organizations that come to mind. So like one that I'm not a member of, but I support, and it's called BYP 100, Black Youth Project 100. It's a national organization. They have chapters all across the country. They have a chapter right here in New York City, and this is one of a real radical organization that's really diverse, but it's led by black youth. So it's called BYP 100, Black Youth Project 100. That's one organization that I definitely would refer to. I go to the action and I just like, hey, how can I support y'all? I'll take pictures for y'all of your action, and I'll take video for y'all, and I'll give it to y'all so y'all, So that's an organization that I really support, and I like their work because they have a black agenda and is led by black youth. Another one that I actually just learned about a month ago is called Justice Committee, right here in New York City, Justice Committee. And this organization was actually founded by it was co-founded by two former Young Lords. The Young Lords Party was a Latino organization. It started in Chicago by former Latino gang members, and they became politicized. They became politicized and radicalized, and they was influenced by the Black Panther Party. And then they created a chapter in New York City. The majority of the members were college students, And but what was unique about the Young Lords here in New York City, they were college students, and it was diverse. They had black people that was a part of it. They had people from the LGBTQ community a part of it, and it was really diverse. And then two members of the Young Lords had created another organization that evolved into the Justice Committee, which does work like they do know your rights training for young people. They do cop watch training. And that's something that stems from the Black Panther Party when they used to do cop patrol. They used to watch in the community because our community was being victimized and brutalized by the police. So they would follow the police and make sure that they weren't violating the rights of the people in the community. And Justice Committee does that type of training, with the video. You got to your phone, and they would do that type of training. Like they'll teach you like how many feet away or yards away you need to be from the police, what to say if you confronted by the police. And they do role play, so they train you in order to do cop watch. That organization is called Justice Committee. So that's two organizations, and a third, I would say, an organization called Vocal New York. Vocal New York. And this organization is a grassroots member organization, and they focus around several things like civil rights. They also focus around like housing. They have a couple of. But Vocal New York is another organization that I love the work that they do. But there's so many. Data for Black Lives. Movement for Black Lives. If you're a young attorney, Black attorney, and you want to become a lawyer, public defender, Movement for Black Lives, or is an organization that does a lot of work. I think they have an organization called Lawyers for Black Lives as well. Yeah, it's so many organizations in the city, man. and like the organization I'm part of, Justice USA and the Closed Records Campaign, we collaborated with like all these organizations, you know.
Wow. Have you ever heard of neighborhood benches?
Oh yeah, Will was a part of the founders of the organization. Before they were founded, they was part of the Closed Records Campaign. They was advocates, you know. And then they seen, because Justice USA was started by a formerly incarcerated person in 2014. And Will and James, who I'm in contact with, they became a part of the Closed Records Campaign. And then James, and then they went on to create neighborhood benches and doing amazing work with young people.
Well, I'm his mentor, as a matter of fact. I met him at Fordham University.
Okay.
He shared with me about neighborhood benches. So just a tight knit.
Yeah.
Wow.
Is it is neighborhood benches?
Mm-hmm. Neighborhood, one word, then benches.
Yep.
Okay.
Very good, powerful young brother. Now, the thing that crossed my mind, and it may not be an actual question, but it always seems to amaze me how we have these organizations specifically for these purposes, yet we don't even know about them.
Yeah.
How is that possible? With everything that's been going on, with the Black Lives Matter that took place under the Obama campaign or administration, which was over 4 years ago, we still, this is my first time hearing BYP 100. My first time hearing Justice Committee, Vocal New York, Civil Rights, Movement for Black Lives. Again, this isn't a direct, this is just open for discussion, but I'm trying to figure out what can we do and share with the community to change that? How can we make this information available to the public? Because they out here, we don't even, to this day, you got kids that I know in Brooklyn, in the Bronx or what have you, who I can bring this up and wouldn't know about it because I didn't know about it. How can we change that, I guess, is the question I'm bringing to you, Darren, but it's open for discussion, you know, and just a brainstorm to, come on, get that information out there, get those resources. Yeah. That way we can do a better job at correcting the police and fixing the injustice and the racism out here. So, Darren, what are your ideas or suggestions on how we can change that?
Yeah, that's a good question. Like, I remember when I went to the Schomburg Center in Harlem. It's like a cultural arts center in Harlem.
Schomburg is nasty. Y'all go to the Schomburg. I learned the
street, Harlem, 135th.
I met so many people, learned so much going to those events at Schomburg.
Yeah. They have an auditorium there where they have different events, and they had the 50th anniversary of the establishment of a Young Lord Party. Right?
The what party?
The Young Lords.
Oh wow!
The 50th anniversary. I think it was last year. That was
okay.
50th anniversary.
Wow. I went to the Black Panther one, but I didn't know about the Young Lords one.
Yeah, so they flew people from all over the country that was Young Lords, former Young Lords, and brought them in. And it was a panel discussion and different speakers. And like one of the things that I recall that stood out to me from one of the speakers there from the Young Lords, he was like, digital online and stuff is good. Like, you know, digital organizing is good, but we got into the community. You know, we got to be knocking on doors. You know, we got to be in the hood.
Face to face.
We got to be in the hood, man.
Yeah, they got to see you.
Because if you look at like organizations, you know, from the past and even the present that had like longevity, like for one example, look at the Nation of Islam. The Nation of Islam was in the hood, in the ghetto, in the bottom, and they helped empower people who was at their rock bottom. You know what I'm saying? They helped empower people, clean people up and politicize people who was at their rock bottom, and those people became really, really loyal to the cause. And the Nation of Islam started decades ago, over 50 years ago.
Yeah, man, over 50 years. And because I know you're about to go, what do you think? Because I know a lot of people like, you know, why is the Nation of Islam so effective? From your why do you think that? Like, why they're so effective?
I think because they went to the bottom. They went to the people who was the most oppressed, the people who was in the ghettos, the people who were in the prisons. You know, they had a heavy influence in the prison system throughout this country, and transform people. Malcolm, that's what he got converted inside of prison, you know, and became one of our greatest leaders. You know, so I think that we organizations need to be really going to the hood and the bottom, because that's where the people are most oppressed. That's what our people are most in need, you know, of change. And so I think that's like one of the things that, and that's why probably a lot of people a lot of organizations don't go to the hood. You know, they have these events and stuff at colleges and universities, you know, and everybody don't have access to that. How about going into a community center? How about, or doing it right in the park, you know, in a neighborhood projects, you know? Very good. So I think that's like one of the things that people need to do. You know, people have actions and protests and marches and rallies and stuff like that in the city, in the community. But I think we need to really go into the hood, man, into the ghetto, into the bottom. Because until, you know,
that's where the real work is at.
That's where the real work is at.
That's
man.
where the real, that's where you cut your teeth. That's where you pay your dues. That's where you learn if that theory that you study in that classroom really, truly works. People gonna let you know. And if they don't let you know, life gonna let you know, like, that shit didn't work. Because I thought about it in class and we talked about it, but then I put it in real life and they ain't feeling that.
And that's like where the Black Panther Party got a lot of the recruits from. You know what I'm saying? And you know, Fred Hampton, he was what, 21 when he was assassinated?
West side of Chicago, Maywood, Fred Hampton.
Little gang members, like the brother from California, his name escaping me right now. He was he was part of the Slauson.
Talking about Bunchy Carter?
Bunchy Carter.
Yeah, Bunchy Carter. Yeah.
Remember, you know, got locked up, got politicized, and he converted those gang members into revolutionaries. You know?
Facts.
So that's what we need to do. The gang members is not in what's the Beverly Hills?
You said Black Beverly Hills?
It's a Black Beverly Hills in this country. It's like a Black Beverly Hills. I forgot the name of it. They had a reality show about it. But you know, the gang members is not in Hampton University or Howard University. They in the hood, man. You know.
Right.
So we need to go into the hood, and I'm trying to I got to work on getting away from saying gang members. I want to say street formations.
Street formation, street tribes. Yeah. Street organizations. Yeah.
You know, they already organized. They got a chain of command. You know what I'm saying? They have a history. They already organized. You know. So imagine they was politicized and radicalized.
Right. And then let me interject right here, because one of my colleagues, she brought up a good point to me. I was kind of expressing what you're expressing to her. What you expressed as I was expressing to her, but she was a little skeptical in the sense. Again, she was skeptical in the sense of hopeful, but still she was like, well, I can understand the gangs when y'all was coming up, but the gangs now, how I see it, they are not politicized. They are all over the place. They don't have any structure. Do you have any insight on that as far as like getting them into the fold of politicizing themselves to free themselves? You know what I'm saying? Like, as far as like here in New York, I'm not sure. Yeah, in New York, yeah. As
far as here in New York, like I know some people that's affiliated with a street formation, and they politicize. You know, they politicize like, and I seen one like that was like a top notch blood member that's like one of the founding like, you know, people, not founder, but he was like one of the first core New York City blood. I seen him at a rally out here in the Bronx marching in the protest. You know what I'm saying? And I was like, ain't that such and such? And the brother from Neighborhood Bench was like, yeah, that's him. He was there with the protest with me, you know? And so you got members that's people that's, you know, politicized, but and they some of them are doing the work. And then you have like some people that's new, the news generation that's affiliated with street formation. They haven't, you know, handed down you know, the history and got politicized. But it's work that need to be done, man. We can't give up on them. We can't give them over to the enemy and to the system. You know what I'm saying? We got I wasn't conscious aware all my life.
Mm-hmm.
It was somebody that had to bring it to me, you know?
Right.
And I'm still evolving. You know, I'm still learning. So
we are.
Brother and sister that's affiliated, they have the same potential. You don't know what that person might become if they get politicized. You know, if we would have gave up on Malcolm, they would have said, "Oh, Malcolm, he's Detroit Red. Forget about him.
Right.
He's done." You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Yeah.
He was politicized, you know, and he became a great leader. So never turn our backs to these young brothers and sisters that's part of street formations, man. You never know what type of seed that you could drop that could become some type of beautiful fruit, you know what I'm saying, and be leaders for this movement.
Fantastic. Now,
Yeah,
great. See, I got the question. Now I'm going to, you know,
yeah.
Two things. Growing up, I think it was even a few years before I started to analyze this, but politics has such a negative connotation, right? When you think of a politician, for me anyway, and from what I'm gathering, the consensus is the first word that comes to mind is corruption, right? So I guess the question that I'm asking is, how can people be assured or assuaged that this term politicized, because that's what's needed, right? Politics, organization. How can we frame it or term it in a way that people don't associate it with the politicians that exist? Because gangs, you politicize, you about to, they're going to buy you too. They're going to buy you off too. You're going to be another, you're going to sell us down like
sell out.
everybody else. What are your suggestions or viewpoints on how to, if necessary, address that term politicized so that way people don't associate it with the negative?
Yeah, that's a good question, man. That's a really good question. So, like, when I say politicized, I mean given political education, you know, and it's a difference. So, political education, and I'm working on trying to like memorize this definition, but it's political education is the collective study, the collective process of study, research, and analysis to develop the knowledge and skills needed to help us understand the world around us, ourselves, and to empower us to change the world. So political education, you know, like, you know, we need to understand, like, what is capitalism? We live in a capitalist society. What is capitalism? You know, what is colonialism? You know, what is socialism?
What is imperialism?
What is imperialism? You know, what that is, you know? So understanding, like, you know, how these systems, like, operate. And if they're not operating for our benefit, then what's an alternative, you know? So I don't mean politicized, meaning just to know how to vote and to vote for a candidate. Nah, that's just a political action. That's just a tool, you know, in a toolbox. But there's many tools that we need to use in order to build a house. We need to build a house, you know, and voting and stuff like that is just one of them. But like when I say politicized, I mean political education. That's what I mean.
Very good, very good. Because I think what it comes down to is we have to do the work also as far as individuals, meaning stop being lazy and do the research ourselves. Just because media or fake media, what have you, use the term politicized and we take their definition for it, we need to do our own research, do our own homework, and find out what the true definition of politics mean. So that way we can operate according to that script and not the stuff they're trying to indoctrinate us with.
Yeah.
Follow that up with the difference between, as we touched on, politicized. What's the difference between that in relation to civil rights and human rights?
Yeah, that's a good question. But I'll say, so the difference between, all right, So let me say this first. One, like Mao Zedong, right? He has a quote that says, "Politics is war without bloodshed, while war is politics without." Yeah, politics is war without bloodshed, while war is politics with bloodshed, right? So, so it's kind of like, it's like two different things. When it comes to like human rights versus civil rights, like it makes me think about Malcolm X. When, during his time, Martin Luther King Jr., they was like for civil rights, the right to be integrated into society and not be discriminated because you black, so to dismantle the Jim Crow system, segregation. So that was like civil rights. You're a citizen. If you're black, you should have the same rights and access to the schools, to the jobs, to the housing, as anyone else. And
right, we pay taxes like everybody else.
Exactly. So, but Malcolm X, he evolved and said we need to fight for human rights because the U.S. have been violating our rights of humanity. They've been subjugating us to the ghettos. They've been discriminating against us, for different things, for various things. So he wanted to take the U.S. to international court. So that's why he traveled to Africa and these different countries, to build up the support. So human rights is like a higher level. And even right now today, people, I've been like following social media, people have been talking about that, human rights, It's probably organizations that have been fighting for reparations, for black people in the country. Just like recently within the last week, someone like did crunch the numbers of how much black people would get for reparations. And it came out to like $17 trillion or something like that. $1,000 for each person.
Bob Johnson.
Yeah, exactly.
Bob Johnson, the BBC president came up with that. Yeah.
So that's like, so like human rights is big as the level above civil rights because that's internal. The government and the society can deal with that, but human rights is a much more international level where you have like maybe the United Nations or the International Court being involved, So that little between the two. And but I think we need to do both,
Okay.
Some people is in that lane fighting for civil rights, on a local or national level, and then we got others movement that's fighting for human rights, we need to find out, which one is more important. I think they both important, and we need to fight for both.
Very good. Child usually says, and it's been said before, it's not either or, it's and. Civil rights and human rights. Very important on both sides, both branches.
It's both, yeah, indeed. And Darren, right, because Malcolm was big on like taking it out of the American borders, like you said, taking it on an international, global level, because he was talking with heads of state. Like you said, he was traveling, so he was getting feedback from these diplomats. And he wasn't a diplomat. Like that was what was crazy about Malcolm, which he was ahead of his time, as people say. That his legacy, like he was one of the most well-educated commoners, if you want to even call it that. But he wasn't like went to a college and got these degrees, but he's speaking at Oxford, so that just gives you the dynamics of this man's intelligence and legacy and influence on the world. But yeah, I want to go into also in reference of like Malcolm and some of the stuff that even on your page I saw with Ella Baker. It's like basically if one person's not free, then we all not free. So we all have work to do. What I'm saying? Shout outs to Ella Baker and her legacy and spirit. She don't get enough credit. So look her up, family. Ella Baker.
Ella is the architect of Martin Luther King's Southern Christian Leadership Coalition Conference, that organization, and then she's the architect of the Student Nonviolent Coordinator Committee as well. They said we need Ella Baker to organize us. She's she's the bomb.
Yeah, man. She don't, yo, yeah. Hey, man, yo. I mean, yeah, man. I mean, she don't. That's what I'm saying. Like, and I'm being a little tongue tied right now because in today's time they want to kind of pit us against each other. Men and women, they want to pit us against each other, and it's like no. Like men get a lot of credit for the civil rights movement, but people like Ella Baker, Fannie Lou Hamer, Rosa Parks, also other women that were behind the scenes. That were very integral in keeping the movement going and keeping it together and spreading information to get to folks and doing workshops with the young folk, mentoring the young folk, being able to provide resources. I mean, the bus boycott in Montgomery, Alabama doesn't work if women aren't a part of it, if they're not spreading the word, passing out the leaflets, talking to each other, because women are social. Women, you know. And this is not a diss, woman. That's part of what makes you you. You are very social. You know what I'm saying? So social but be social for your freedom. You know what I'm saying? Like,
and I'll add another name in there, Queen Mother Moore.
Ooh, yeah, ooh, yeah. How can I forget that?
I just learned last year that she was instrumental in teaching Malcolm X how to organize.
Yes, sir.
If we talk about reparations today, she was on the forefront of that. She was one of the founders of that reparations movement.
I understand that you sent a petition to the United Nations in, I think, 1957 for reparations for the black people in America. Explain something about that to us.
Yes, the petition called for us to go back to Africa, for those who wanted to go back. And for those who wanted to stay here, there had to be certain indemnity given for the people who wanted to stay, the people who wanted to go.
What kind of indemnity?
Well, I was asking for $200 billion. $200
billion to indemnify?
Yes, for the injury that we have received. The injury as a result of our enslavement.
Okay, that's for our 400 years of enslavement.
Yes.
As reparations, we requested $200 billion.
Yes.
Would you be able to sum up what you think a message, let's say for black youth or Africans, that would help them in knowing themselves and being a contributor to their race?
Yes, well, I think the most important thing is to study and to find your name, who you are, to get a name for yourself. You have to get a name. Don't go through life with a European name. You've got to put down that name. Just take a name. Just take an African name and name yourself. Learn who you are. That's the...
How would you suggest that a young person go about that?
Well, you got to look yourself in the mirror. Who are you? Who are you? Most of our people don't know who they are. They don't know. They're thinking European. They don't have a mind of their own. They got to get their right mind back. They can't think. They can't think. I don't care if you have your PhD. Don't tell me you've gone to the best colleges. The best college didn't give you your identity, didn't give you a national identity at all. You've got to be able to comprehend what you're thinking. You've got to be able to understand and think for yourself and stop thinking in the pattern that the other people want you to think all the time.
Yo, man.
Yo, this is important history.
She's with Garvey. Like, man.
Yo, go on YouTube, Queen Mother Moore. They got videos of her telling stories about Garvey. She ain't no joke. She used to be packing too. She had that. Man. She used to have that hammer too. She was a revolutionary.
Yeah. Hey, man. Like I said, self-defense.
Yeah.
Like, you know, and again, I don't know if people, you know, I don't know if people realize that when you do certain things against the establishment, when we talk about the terms like imperialism, when you go against the imperialist structure, you are literally putting your life at risk. Whether you're screaming, whether you're shouting, whether you're packing, And again, these are, and family, these aren't things what Darren has mentioned. These aren't things that's like, oh, I want my reparations. No, these are like, I just want to go to school. Like, can I get like decent healthcare? You know what I'm saying? Like, we shedding blood over like decent healthcare. We shedding blood over like, yo, let me just go to the store like that's around the corner, even though it's white owned. But since they don't let blacks aren't allowed, I gotta go, down the road, way down the road to so and so.
How about can I just jog right in the neighborhood and not have to be attacked by civilians? How about that?
Exactly. Just
Sorry,
simple.
cut you off.
Shedding blood over basic human rights, like you said, civil rights, human rights. So that goes into my question, Darren. And this is for you and for all of us in here. How can we trust that the people who are imprisoning us, oppressing us, will follow through with the reform or the ending, like you talking about the campaign at Rikers Island, the campaign of ending mass incarceration for men and women of color in this country? I mean, that means I'm talking about black and brown folks, I'm talking about African American, Latino, even some Asians in there, right? Mainly the cause are African people, right, in the diaspora, where they come from, South America, North America, Africa, Australia, don't matter. Like, that's what I'm talking about. How can we trust them, man?
This is my perspective,
Please, yeah.
And my suggestions when it comes to the system and the agents of the system. I don't think we should ever trust them, because it's like, especially like elected officials, they work for the system, and people who get hired to work in the system, they have a job to do, and a lot of times, unfortunately, sometimes they will make deals or like do things that's against the interests of the community, man. Like, for example, like we seen like films like Boys in the Hood.
Right.
The black cop in Boys in the Hood.
Man, he internalized racism to such a degree he hated himself and black people. And he executed oppression in the community. He wanted to blow a black young boy head off because he was black in the hood. Right.
So, and you have people that internalize the racism amongst our community, and they work against the interests of our community. Whether it's because of that or because of capitalism, they want $1. It was a black hand that pulled the trigger to kill Malcolm. But even though we know that it's a system that facilitated all of that, it was a black man who wrote the floor plans for the police in order to assassinate Fred Hampton. It's a statement by, I think it's Zora Neale Hurston. She said, all skinfolk ain't my kinfolk.
Kinfolk. I said that in the last. Yeah. All kinfolk ain't my kinfolk.
Because people's politics, is not on the right side, on the right side in the interest of the people. Look, Candace Owens. This woman, that's self-hatred and criminalized racism to the 10th degree. For those that watch the Boondocks, Uncle Ruckus. Uncle Ruckus. Uncle Ruckus is out there. Clarence Thomas is, you know what I'm saying? Uncle
Man.
Even though this is a movie, but Django.
The Django, Steven Seven.
Oh yeah.
The Django.
Goes deep.
Are we hurt, boss? His boss sick? Are we?
Yeah, that's right. The house Negro, man. So a lot of it's too many people suffer from that. So how can we trust, the system? I said we don't trust it. We continue to organize. We always be on our P's and Q's, be on point, and and keep moving forward, man. And we don't need everybody to get our freedom. You know what I'm saying?
Very good.
We don't need everybody to get our liberation. Whatever that mass is to do that, it's something. During the Civil War, you had folks that was like not willing to fight. You know what I mean? For the freedom.
Mm-hmm.
So in the movements, past and present, it wasn't every single 100% everybody. You know what I'm saying? But we got to continue to do the work and be cautious. And we don't need everybody. If it's somebody that's not with it, then just continue to educate and recruit, because it's going to be people that's with it.
Very good.
Indeed.
Good answer. Darren, good.
Yeah, man. Yeah, man. And
I'm sorry.
and Darren, like in reference of that too, man. Like one thing I learned last year at Schomburg, very, very, very needed, necessary institution. If you're in the New York area, New York City, or if you come to New York City, you got to visit the Schomburg Center for Black Culture. You must visit the Schomburg. It is. I was there, and his brother who does these tours, the Black Gothic tour here in New York, young brother too, and he was saying that his research. Well, it was him, and it was another sister who was doing some research. I'm sorry, I want to definitely give the sister credit. I just can't remember her name, but she was a doctor. She was doing her dissertation, and she was saying that she was finding out in her research that it was somewhat difficult because, again, our documents aren't as cohesive or not consecutive, but cohesive, because it's like they're like piecing things together. Because again, we talk about slaves, we were enslaved people. They didn't, we were cattle, we were like animals, so they didn't really bother to keep up with the records so thoroughly. But anyway,
and plus they wouldn't let us read. It was
right. Plus they wouldn't let us read anyway. But these are like documents on like people's bodies, being shipped and things like that. So she was saying she was doing the records, and she was noticing a pattern. And the pattern she noticed, and this is going into my question, family. She noticed that the ships that had the women on it had majority women on it, and the men were being revolted than the ones that were all male. She was like, why is that? And she found out that the reason why the ships that were being revolted more, which had the male female dynamic, was that the fact that the women were helping the men to revolt on those ships. Were the bed winches, as they used to call them, the bed winches or the bed warmers for some of the working shipmates, and they were getting into those spaces and getting them keys and hiding those weapons, and then they come back to the fold, and it was passing them back to the brothers. The brothers were like, oh, okay. So now we got an inside agent going in, getting resources for us to break up out of this situation. So I thought that was amazing, man. And this goes into my question, man. The women, the sisters who are being incarcerated, man. What is going on with that? Because I know, especially back in my hometown city, Nashville, the sister Cynthia Brown, I want to say, who was incarcerated in reference of killing a man because he was trying to pimp her, and she wasn't happy. And that was out of self-defense. Could you talk a little bit about that from what you know, Darren, man, with the women being incarcerated and how that's going with that process of freeing them and bringing more attention to it?
Yeah. So I work with a lot of the women that's involved with social justice work and dismantling the carceral system. And women for a couple of years now have been the highest incarcerated population, than any other group. And one of the things that I know, there's organizations and there's advocates and organizers amongst women that's been doing amazing work in trying to dismantle the system. Like an organization that comes to mind is an organization called the Council, or the National Council for Incarcerated and Formerly Incarcerated Girls and Women, something like that. The Council, but it's known as the Council, and it was basically being led by one sister by the name of Andrea James. It's a national organization. They have chapters all across the country. Like, it's one of the organizations that I refer to and follow their lead when it comes to women incarcerated and formerly incarcerated women. They're doing amazing work, and on the inside and the outside. And they've been part of the struggle, since the beginning, like you mentioned, like on a slave boat, all the way from Harriet Tubman to up until today. Women been on the front lines and in the back. Ella Baker doing the work, been instrumental. there's a book about the resistance of women in prison. The name escapes me right now. I think the author of the book, his name is Victoria Law, and I forget the title of the book. But there's a book out there about the struggles of women in prison, of resisting the oppression, and you know that they've been going through and still continue to go through. You know, I remember when I was incarcerated, they had a program called PACE, Prison AIDS, Counseling, and Education. And this program was actually started by the women in New York City, you know, in the New York City, the New York State prison system. And it was like in the 80s where, you know, the AIDS epidemic was at its height, and it was this stigma, oh, you got HIV positive, oh, I don't want to touch you, don't breathe around me. But it was women that hit to it because they saw a flux of people that was HIV positive coming into the system, and they started educating the people about it. Like, yo, it's not like that. You can't just shake a person's hand and get it. And they started a program in prison that basically now it's like an all New York State prison system. You could get certified, educated about to be a counselor, you know what I'm saying, an educator or a consultant, you know, and a lot of people that I know like came home and started doing that work in the field out here in New York State. So, so they always been a part of the struggle. I think it's women that's going to end mass incarceration in this country.
Wow.
That's my belief, you know. So that's always follow their lead and see what they doing and like support what they doing, because you know they not only that they're oppressed by the system when it comes to like racism and capitalism, but they also oppressed with patriarchy. You know what I mean? So so it's a lot of things, and they've been in the forefront, man. You know, of so much of the work, and yeah, I follow their lead and study what they write and try to stay connected and support the work that they do.
Definitely, bro. Definitely, man. I feel you on that, man. I try to stay connected as well, man, and try not to forget the work that they have been doing and are doing in reference of the men who do get allowed to shine. But the real brothers know, and we try to give them the credit that they deserve, but also not just credit, but like the assistance and the power behind that, because again, you know, we are working towards each other's freedom. So it's not like, oh, you do all the work and I just sit back and say, you know, congrats, you know, thank you, you know. No, get up in there, like put your boots on, put your big boy pants on, put your hard hat on and get to work. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah, reading the history about women's struggle actually, and when I was incarcerated, because I was in a college program called the Bar Prison Initiative, where I was incarcerated, and in a history class, by my professor, Dr. Delia Mellis, she taught a class about U.S. women's history, right? And one of the things I learned is about the labor movement, you know, and how like here in New York, it was this thing called the Triangle Shirtwaist Factory fire, and it was a big fire, and that kind of ignited women. It was like young teenagers and young 20s immigrant women started organizing, you know, to improve the labor conditions that we benefit from today. And I was like, man, if these young women that's immigrant, you know, and, you know, they young teenagers and in their 20s could organize and change things, then I could change things too. So that inspired me, you know, and that was like a catalyst that made me wanted to get involved in social justice work. Nice,
man. Nice. Yeah. Sharing that, man. Yeah, I mean, you dropping mad jewels, man. All right, like needed, because I again, like we talked about early in the podcast, and thank you for people who are chiming in for Grand Rise Collective podcast. You know, this is Darren Mack. He's an activist, advocate in social, political reform of prisons, ending prisons, grassroots organizing. So if you have any questions, please ask. But yeah, like that's important, man. Like to find out these things so we know who and what we're dealing with. All right. I know I don't want to.
Nah, man, because I'm still proud. I got some. But one thing I want to say is not necessarily a question, but I do want to say something that Kyle shared with me. He's been sharing with me for a couple of weeks now. And he says the most rebellious thing you can do in this environment that we live in is to be a family, meaning husband and wife, and have a child, because then you're leaving legacy. down to your children. And I want to also make a statement, whereas I think, because it's really, man, it's comprehensive in here. It's a lot. Yeah. But I wanted to save this for last, and I think I still am. But I want to give credit and honor to the women as well, because, like you said, on the slave ship, they need each other, and I think the separation that we're experiencing as relationships, particularly Black families, we really need to put that as a priority on the forefront to try and work it out, figure our things out, aside from Western civilization's definition of what a relationship should be. So I definitely want to give credit to the women. Appreciate my mom, definitely. If it wasn't for my mom, you know what I mean, I wouldn't be the man in large part that I am today. But respect to my dad as well, because he did. So what I want to do is I want to change it a little, ask this question in regards to the theme that I'm hearing is organization, right? Women organize, grassroots organize, Nation of Islam organize, in the hood, organization. How valid or how important does voting play in that? So how does strategic voting play a part in ending this so-called mass incarceration, in ending the so-called unconscious or conscious biasness and racism? How does voting play a part in that? Is voting, for a lot of people don't feel voting is important at all. We got Bush elected in office in 2000. When he didn't win the popular vote, they did a recount. He still won anyway. They were messing polls there. You got this so-called person who's not my president in the office now. He didn't win by popular vote. So my question to you is, how important is voting? How important is voting? How does strategic voting play a part in ending mass incarceration in this particular case?
Yeah, I think like voting is just one tool of the many tools that we need to utilize, you know, like voting, like especially on a local level, like city council members, even voting on like assembly members, you know, on a local level, it's powerful on a local level. Like, you know, if you live in a community in a city council district, and you vote, and you have like your neighborhood that votes, you know, elected officials, they come out and like, hey, there's a big voting people. I know a lot of people over here vote, so I'm gonna come out and see what they want, what they need, you know. So on a local on a local level, whether city and statewide, is a powerful tool. It kind of gets weaker on a federal level because you have the electoral college, where the person who wins the most votes could lose because of that system, the way the system is designed.
Right.
But it's still important. But at the end of the day, it's one tool. You know, we have to use all the tools. You know, and that like, you know, organizing and being in the streets. You know, developing. You know, on a local level. Like there's a saying that they say all politics is local. You know, because a lot of stuff happened. Like as far as like the carceral system, like jails and prisons, most of the jails and prisons is local and on a state level. The federal prison system is probably less than 10%.
Wow.
Less than 10% of the prison system, you know, in the country. The federal system is 10%. The 90 is on a state level. And then the jails is on a local, in counties, you know, in counties and cities. The jails is in counties and cities. So it's a small. I think that's the number. It's probably less than 10%, but it's a small fraction compared to the city and state. The Prison Policy Initiative, they have a chart of like how the jail and prison system is broken down in our country. Like how many in the on a state level, how many in the federal level. The ICE detention centers, you know, so that's why the most of the fight is on a local and on a state level.
Okay,
you know, these jails and state prisons. So that's where the most of the fight is at. And voting is just one of the tools. You know, we have to organize, you know, and change policy. We have to organize to develop the things we need in our communities, right? The things we need in our communities that not only like, you know, the divest from the system, like here we have the across the country, people calling for defunding the police,
right,
and take money away and invest in the communities. So we need to do that, and we also need to start to develop autonomous, independent, what they like survival programs, survival structures, in our community, things that's not tied to the system, like how the Black Panthers, they had, medical clinics, they had food programs, food breakfast programs, it was
all that family
funding it ourselves, you know what I mean?
right.
Very good.
So, so we have to do that work as well.
Very good, Darren. So I'm gonna say to this as a follow-up, but I think you answered it already, because some of the other concerns in regards to voting is, okay, this politician, as we know, now we've done our research and we suggested do your research on what the term politician and politics mean. The pattern has been they come to the community because they know this certain block votes, but then once they're elected in office, then they forget their allegiance and the promises that they made. So the point that I'm gathering from what you just said is if we organize, build our own entity to a large extent, if they do renege on their promise or whatever the case would be, we already have our internal network in place to keep us strong to fix and more scrutinize and filter the next candidate that we put in office, or to the extent get that candidate we put in office out to bring a new candidate in. So that's what I'm gathering in regards to a solution or strategy with regards to the whole voting block, which you said is one piece.
Yeah.
So if we build our own, we can control or manage that more effectively.
Yeah. It's people before us that have been calling for that, since like the Nation of Islam, the Republic of New Africa, calling for like the land, in the South for Black people, like
separation, yeah.
5 states, South Carolina, that area out there, so, and, it's been people, that's been calling for that for a long time. And, that's part of, the movement, people are doing different things. And, yeah, that's just like, like you said, brother, that's like, there's a lot of things we have to do. And just the electoral politics is just one tool in the box,
Thank you, brother. One follow-up question, Kyle, before you go. Darren, I want it's a concept question I'm gonna ask you. What would the world look like, or the United States in particular look like, without prisons?
Without prisons, I think it would be more safer because we would have the things we need in our community, like affordable housing, healthcare, all those things that we need to be safe, in our community. Less people would be traumatized, by jails and prisons. People wouldn't be, working in a punitive system, as far as like correctional officers. And, if we don't have, there'll be like in other services, like we need essential workers, like nurses, like, look at this, the COVID-19, like overpowered the system, and nurses, we don't even have enough nurses and doctors and stuff like that, So people will be going to other professions other than, prison guards and jail guards and stuff like that, So yeah, I think it definitely be a better world, man. We gotta imagine it and work for it. Like we'll have maybe we got the vision to make a film like Wakanda. We could bring stuff like that into reality.
Well said.
Indeed. And to add on what you're saying, Darren. What about, because it's mentioned, I've seen it in the news, but it's here and there because we're doing so much right now. When you talked about having those resources for all the communities that we encompass and we live in, if prison didn't exist, how are the incarcerated folks, how are they dealing with COVID, man? Because we've been hearing news and reports that they're not getting the treatment. So when we talk about people being incarcerated and being in prison for unjust causes, or if they are, they're treated inhumanely, how are they rectifying that, or what do you know that's being done to kind of help them get through? Because some of them are suffering, man, and they don't have to, and it's unjust. They're just like, oh well, they're locked up, they're criminals, let them do it. If they live, they live. Or what is being done about that? And also the mental health of ex-felons, those who are also still currently incarcerated. Do you have any insight on that? On both of those?
Yeah. So, like a lot of the justice, organizations, like here in New York City and across the country, have been launching campaigns, like the Freedom Now here in New York, or Freedom All, or Freedom for Public Health, all across the country, and trying to bail people out and calling on. And we've been pushing the mayor and the governor here in New York to give people like clemency. If a person got 60 days or 90 days or a couple of months, the left for their sentence, it's a pandemic happening in the jails and the prison. They need to let them go. Yeah. And we've been putting a lot of pressure on them to such a degree, like the mayor, released hundreds of people out of the jail system, and we still pushing more to get people free. People bailing people out, people that, some people, I don't know about the clemency situation, but with the governor, he hasn't really executed, his powers to release people on the clemency, but the people are fighting to get people free, man. And as far as how people are feeling on the inside, I've heard people call in. We've done webinars and had people call in who was incarcerated, and it's a real fear, man. A lot of people really scared on the inside, about being, contracted with COVID-19, because it's like a sentence, man. Once you get it, you don't get the proper medical care or the treatment. We've seen videos, from people from other states of inside the jail or inside the prison of people sick and don't have no mask, and they just left people for dead. And so it's a fight all across the country, man. And but you do have people that's organizing on the inside and on the outside to get the message out there, to put pressure on elected officials to get people out. Just recently, people were fighting to get one of the brothers, Jalil Mutakim, Anthony Bottom, who's a political prisoner here in New York, and then they was trying to get him out, and I think a judge had utilized his power to get him out because of COVID and his age, because he's an elderly person, been in prison for 48 years, political prisoner, and the attorney general here in New York appealed it and stopped his release, and then he got COVID after that because he was still incarcerated. Wow. So they basically he got COVID-19. He's an elderly, and we hoping, man, that he get the treatment that he need. You got people, organizations trying to make sure he get what he need and survive, man, because that brother Jalil Mutakim, aka also known as Anthony Bottom, he's someone that's been around in the movement, since the 60s, and got a lot of knowledge to share for us to move this movement forward, man. So I'm just hoping and praying that this brother get out alive and hopefully he get home safe, man. I think his parole is coming up, and hopefully he get released on parole soon.
Thank you, man. Definitely prayers for that brother, man. And real quick too, I was thinking while you were talking, what about the backlash? Because I know a lot of people think oh, why is the mayor or governor giving clemency to these criminals? And what are they gonna do while they're out? Is that gonna cause more? You see, because we all deal with the stereotype. We all deal with it because we've been miseducated on how a lot of our brothers and sisters go into the system and they say they come out better criminals, or they get the proper education or treatment while there, so they're still dealing with the same issues mentally as when they come out. So could you briefly go into that? Just what are the brothers doing once they do receive that clemency, dealing with the COVID-19, rightfully so, you know what I'm saying, to get away from that and try to heal?
Yeah. So for the mayor, we here to get people released, right? The majority of people, overwhelming majority of people on Rikers Island have not been convicted of anything. They just there fighting a case. Wow. The main reason why they there is because they can't afford bail. Now, if you rich like Harvey Weinstein, who raped all those women, you won't spend a night in prison because of the bail system. He got millions of dollars. You could make it $500 million. He'll get bailed out, But because of the bail system, if I think Brian Stevenson said it best. He's that wrote the book Just Mercy that became a book. He said the criminal justice system treats you better if you're rich and guilty than if you're poor and innocent. That's what it is, So most people on Rikers Island, they haven't been convicted of a crime. They there because they can't afford bail and they still fighting their case. You know, if they had the bail money, they would be home just going back and forth to court to fight their case, but they don't have bail. They remain incarcerated. On a state level, you know, most people, you know, especially like studies have shown that when a person does a lot of time in prison, you know, I did 20 years in prison. You know, I'm doing social justice work. I'm working for the community and trying to make change in the community. Most people a lot of time are the least likely to recidivate, you know, the least likely to go back to prison, you know, because they aged out, they became socially conscious and aware. You know, they became productive members of the community. A lot of the people that I knew that was some of the most upstanding, righteous, and humble and intelligent people that I know. They was people who committed violent crimes. You know, and one what you've done in the past doesn't define you, man. You know, that doesn't define you. And everyone, you know. Some people didn't get a first chance, but everyone deserves a second chance. You know, people are gonna come home anyway in the prison system. Most people are gonna come home anyway. At some time, if you got 25 to life, they're gonna come home anyway. So, you know, everybody. I think that we talking about human beings, man. We talking about people. We talking about mothers, daughters, sons, fathers. You know. What would you say in a situation if it was your father, your son, or your daughter that was incarcerated? Think about that. Most people don't think it would happen to them. You know, most people don't think it would happen to their cousin or their father or their son or their daughter. We got over 2 million people incarcerated on any given day right now. 70 million people went through the system, got criminal convictions, you know? So, beings, we need to think about, you know, not the people that's doing well, like people. I think it was Fyodor Dostoevsky. He said that that civilization is judged by the measure of civilization is judged by entering the prisons. You know, you don't look at being elite and say, "Oh, that's a good society." No, look at what the people on the bottom is, how they doing, and then you could judge the society by that.
Very good. Very good. We passed the hour, Darren. We don't want to take up more of your time.
It's getting dark.
It is. Going with that, because I was going to ask you a question about defunding and like the privatization.
Because people next time, you know, we can do it.
Oh, we doing a follow up like real quick because I mean this is an issue that's affecting a whole bunch of people. It happened in my family. Some of my friends, you know, when they ask that question, you know, who do you know who's been incarcerated? You know, who do you know who in your family's been incarcerated? Like, I can raise my hand on both of those. Like, so this hits me. This hits home for me. And yeah, man, it's just, you know, it's so easy to forget. It's so easy to like put these people to the side and say, you know, like how they did the crime, you know, the whole do the crime, do the time, and it's like. Nah, it ain't that simple. It's not that simple because, like you said, like Brian Stevenson, you quoted, perfect. That's the tale of two cities right there. If you're poor and innocent, you get more heat than if you rich and guilty.
Yes, absolutely.
If that's not a huge injustice.
Yeah,
man.
Look at all those people, those wealthy people that created the mortgage crisis, you know, and collapsed our economic. Right. Ain't nobody go to jail. Some of them got bonuses.
Yes, yo, man. Whew, that's a whole nother. Ooh, man. You know, corruption is real. The corruption is real. You know, and that like Darren, because I know time is of essence, but like when I tell people, you know, when I lived in Chicago, you know, I really grew up there, and I tell people, you know, oh, you know, Chicago's as bad as this. I said, yo, Chicago. On the street level is only acting how the top officials act. Trust me, it comes from the top down. Like, you know what I'm saying? The corruption that you see on the street is nothing like the corruption within the city officials and government officials, state officials in the state. Nothing. It is only a trickle down. And that's what brothers like you said, like Mark Clark, Fred Hampton was doing that political work in Chicago. They was telling the people, they was like, look, like yo, you think we bad? Like, nah, we getting it from the top down. And we're still coming out of our unconscious behavior and becoming conscious, saying, oh, we know who the real enemy is.
Mm.
Who our real opposition is.
I'm gonna end it off like this. My final words. You know, you gave already some tangibles.
Yeah, brother.
Man, steps, action steps, tangible, definitely insightful. One of the things I would like to piggyback on and continue in our conversation with all our part twos, Kyle, is the book called The Making of Willie Lynch Letter. Willie Lynch, because a lot of the stuff that we're talking about are effective, but if we don't change our mental to be able to deprogram ourselves from the indoctrination that we receive from this civilization from birth on up, then all the work we're going to do to an extent will be futile. So once we get our head right, then we can come together, we can then organize, and then we can execute effectively. So I just wanted to leave my last words in regards to that. My handles, pretty much. And before I do that, Darren, thank you so much, brother.
Thank you, man.
So much. My handles is Balagoon Logic at Twitter and Instagram. I'm on YouTube I have YouTube channel Kaide Bentley on YouTube, Perspective TV on YouTube. Look that up for interviews with influencers, candidate advisor where I give advice and things of that nature on YouTube. And then obviously Grand Rising Collective, which is this channel right here. Don't forget to like, support, share this information. Darren dropped jewels, dropped gems today, man. Taught me a lot in organizing. Thank you, D. Hand it over to you, Kyle, regarding the handles, brother.
Indeed. Thank you, family, for rocking with us. Definitely hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. Excuse me. Like, definitely, like, really use the information that Darren gave to you today and use that. Like, go look it up. We put them in the chat. The different types of organizations, the different people you can look up. There's a multitude of organizations wherever you're at. If you're in California, if you're in New York, if you're in Texas, if you're in Florida, trust me, the organizations there. Go search them out. You know, even if you're in Mobile, Alabama, there's some around there. But you can reach me at KEZ773 on Twitter. You can reach me on Instagram, DixKyle, DIX_KYLE. And you can also reach me on YouTube, my YouTube channel, Mr. Kyle Dixon. All right. So definitely, family. So Darren, could you give them your handles so they can reach out to you? And if they have any questions too, you know.
Yeah, you could. I'm on social media. I'm on Twitter at Darren Mack 718. So yeah, that's Darren Mack 718. I'm on Twitter, and yeah, man. I thank you, bless y'all, man. Thank you so much for having me. You know, I'm gonna catch up with some of the other shows that I missed. You know, definitely hit the like button, everybody. You know, and you'll stay tuned. There's a lot of information these brothers are getting. They doing the work and sharing it. So definitely, man, stay tuned and go back to the other shows. You know, give your comments, feedback. You know, yeah.
Thank you, Darren. Appreciate you.
Indeed. Thank you, brother. This was a scholar, man. This was a great time, man. I just really thoroughly appreciate the work that you're doing, brother. I appreciate your energy. I appreciate your time. I appreciate your presence, and just, you know, you putting your livelihood on the line, man, for the people and for those brothers and sisters who are locked down and incarcerated, man. I got much respect and love for you, man. Straight up.
Likewise, man. I'll be here to collaborate and, you know, and work together and, you know, and move forward.
Awesome. Got you.
Indeed, brother. So, family, we are out. Come check us out later. Grand Rise Collective Podcast. We in the building, y'all.
Peace. I'll catch up with you. You and Darren.
Yeah. Baby, yeah. You don't say ready on this. You know I have patience.